Hello students, today we are going to discuss next poem which has been prescribed into your syllabus by Punjab School Education Board. The title of the poem is The Road Not Taken, and it has been written by famous American poet named Robert Frost. So let's have a look over the image of Robert Frost first. Students, this is image of Robert Frost. Let's now have a look over the introduction to the poet. Robert Lee Frost, March 26, 1874 to January 29, 1963, was an American poet. His work was initially published in England before it was published in the United States. Known for his realistic depictions of rural life and his command of American colloquial speech, Frost frequently wrote about settings from rural life in New England in the early 20th century. It means most of his writings depict the realistic and the rural life of America, and his writings show that he has full command over American colloquial speech. Colloquial means to use words and the words and phrases which are used in spoken conversation. So he has full command over colloquial speech. He frequently wrote about settings from rural life in New England in the early 20th century, using them to examine complex social and philosophical themes. So, his writings give us the themes about complex social and philosophical issues. So, this is the introduction to the poet. Let's now discuss text of the poem The Road Not Taken. This image shows two different roads. Let's now discuss the text of the poem The Road Not Taken. Before beginning with the text, let's have a look over the introduction to the poem. In this poem, the road, the word road in the title symbolizes our life. The poet says that the path that we don't choose in our life is the road not taken. He describes his feelings about that choice that he had left in the past. The path or the way which we have chosen decides our future, our destination. So, according to the poet, whatever we choose in our life, it makes our future, our destination. So, let's now discuss and begin with the text of the poem. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood. Diverged, parted. Diverged means parted or branched away. The poet in this very first stanza says that once he was going through the woods, yellow wood, woods, wood here means forest. He was passing through a forest. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood. He says that once he was passing through a forest and he came to a point where the two roads were branching away from each other. And sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. The poet says that he felt sorry at that time because he could not travel both of the roads at one time, and so he has to choose or select only one road. And be one traveler means he has to choose or select only one road to go along. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could. Then the poet says that long I stood. He stood there for a long time and looked down one as far as I could. Then he looked down upon one road as far as I could to where it goes. To where it bent in the undergrowth. He looked upon the one road as far as he could, and he kept looking at it until the road bent in the undergrowth. Undergrowth here means bushes. Undergrowth means bushes. He kept looking at the road until it bent in the bushes. Next stanza. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had warned them really about the same. Then took the other. In this stanza, the poet says that after looking at one road, he took the another. He started looking at the another road as just as fair. Second road was also as just means it was as good and as fair. Just and fair here means good and comfortable. The poet says that Robert Frost says that this road was as good and comfortable as the other one, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. This road was better than the first one because there was grass. It was covered with grass and wanted wear, and no traveler had passed through it. Though, as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. The poet says that the use of the either road by the travelers who passed from there to that point was concerned. Both roads looked same, and had warned them. Warn here means they were trodden in the same way by the travelers. Though as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. The poet says that the people who passed from that road had worn or had trodden both of the roads equally. About the same means equally, in the same way. But the second road was in a good condition than the first one. And both that morning equally lay in leaves, no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. And both that morning equally lay. In this stanza, the poet says that both of the roads, that morning, both of the roads were equally lay in leaves. Equally lay in leaves means both of the roads were equally covered with leaves. No step had trodden black. No, not any person had yet used either of the roads. Oh, uh, I kept the first for another day. So he decided to keep the first road for use in future, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. He knew, yet knowing means the poet knew how way leads on to way. He knew if he knew that from one road or from one path branches off another. So he doubted if I should ever come back. He doubted if he would ever come back to the same point from where the two roads diverged. So he was in a doubt, but he kept the first road for use in future, and he selected or he chose the second road. Next stanza. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. I shall be telling this with a sigh. In these lines, the poet says that after a long time or many years later, when he has time to think back, I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence means that many years later, whenever he have time, he will think about his confusion to which road to choose. He would think about that in the past he had to decide one road of the two roads which diverged in a wood, but he took the one that was less traveled by. He took that road, he chose that road which was less traveled by the people, and that has made all the difference. And by selecting or by choosing that road, all the difference had been made for him. It had affected not only his future course. It affected not only his future, but also his spiritual course of after death. So by selecting the second road, all his life in future has been changed. So this is a very meaningful poem, students. The road not taken, as it gives us the idea or the theme that to choose one path or to choose one option is very difficult for a person in his or her life, because it influences a person's whole future life. So a person should choose by presence of his mind, by thinking for a long time, because the choice making influences the whole course of a man's life. So students, today we have discussed very important poem, The Road Not Taken. So try to write down central idea of this poem and listen and watch this video. Thank you. Thank you very much.